The morning air was fresh and brisk, carrying the earthy scent of wet soil and pine trees. As the sun began to peek through the branches, it cast long shadows across the peaceful countryside. While walking through the tall grass in the overgrown field behind our house, I suddenly heard a faint noise. It was soft and trembling, almost like a cry. My heart raced as I followed the sound, carefully stepping around thick patches of brambles and wildflowers. Nestled among the leaves, I found Luna, a tiny kitten, no more than 6 days old, weak and shivering, her little body barely moving. Panic washed over me. Maxine and I had talked about getting a cat, but never thought it would be like this. I couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness. Could I really save her? I gently cradled Luna in my hands. She felt fragile, like a leaf dancing in the wind. Her fur was matted and wet, coated in dirt from the cold ground where she had been lying. I could barely feel her tiny form as I held her. Her bones felt thin and brittle. She was smaller than I ever thought a kitten could be at her age, and her eyes, half open and clouded with exhaustion, struggled to meet mine. It was clear she was fighting for her life, but with each shaky breath, my worst fear lingered. She still needed help. I hurried back to the house, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. The gravel crunched beneath my boots, and the air felt heavier with the weight of the responsibility I had just taken on. The morning light streamed through the trees, casting a gentle golden glow over the yard, but everything felt surreal. My hands trembled as I unlocked the door. I knew I needed to act fast. Tiny kittens like her required warmth to survive. Inside, Maxine was still asleep, cozied under the covers in our small bed, her breathing calm and steady. Part of me wished to stay in that peaceful moment just a little longer. Instead, I carefully placed Luna on the counter. The cool ceramic sent a chill through my fingers as I hurried to warm a towel. I moved through the tasks, feeling the urgency of time pressing down on me, although I wasn't entirely sure how much time we had left. With shaking hands, I grabbed my phone and dialed Sophie, the local vet. Each ring felt like an eternity, and anxiety swelled in me as I glanced at Luna, whose feeble cries served as a reminder of how little I knew about caring for her. Finally, when Sophie answered, her voice was a comforting presence. "Jonas, what's happening?" Her voice was calm, but I could sense she was preparing for what I had to say. "I found a kitten. She's just 6 days old, and she doesn't look good. She's cold and weak, hardly moving. I'm trying to warm her up, but I'm not sure if it's enough." Sophie paused for a moment, the quiet almost palpable. "All right, just stay calm. Bringing her inside was the right choice. Keep her warm and make sure she's hydrated, but you need to get her here as soon as you can." I felt a small wave of relief, yet it wasn't enough to ease my worry. I glanced back at Luna, who was wrapped in a towel on the counter. She was still breathing, but her breaths were shallow and slow. From the other room, Maxine stirred, her voice still thick with sleep. "What's happening?" she asked, her curiosity evident. "I found a kitten," I explained, making my way to the bedroom. "She's in trouble, and I need to get her to Sophie." Maxine sat up and rubbed her eyes. She looked from me to the kitten and back. "I don't really know how to handle this, but I'm here for you." Her words felt uncertain, but they also gave me a sense of support that I desperately needed. The uncertainty in her eyes reflected my own feelings. We didn't know what the outcome would be, but we had to do everything possible for Luna. The drive to Sophie's clinic felt endless. I kept stealing glances in the rearview mirror at Luna, still nestled in the towel, her tiny body barely moving. Outside, the world blurred as we navigated the winding roads. Maxine sat quietly beside me, her hand occasionally resting on mine. Even her touch couldn't quiet the whirlwind of questions racing through my mind. When we arrived, Sophie quickly took Luna from my hands, her experienced touch both swift and gentle. "She's in really bad shape," Sophie said softly as she examined the kitten, her expression shifting to one of concern. "This is a critical age for kittens, especially ones who have been abandoned. She may not make it through the night." A chill went through me as I absorbed her words. It felt like everything was shifting around me. I had known Luna was fragile, but hearing Sophie confirm it hit me harder than I expected. I had already invested so much care into this kitten, and now I felt like I was standing on the edge of a steep cliff, unsure whether to take the next step forward. Maxine stood off to the side, watching us with a mix of worry and frustration. What happens if she doesn't make it? Sophie spoke in a quiet voice, but there was an intensity to her words. It was clear that both of us were dealing with the uncertainty of the situation. When her gaze met mine, the gravity of our decision felt almost overwhelming. "We'll do everything we can," she said steadily, "but I can't promise anything." While Sophie focused on her work, Maxine and I stood off to the side, feeling the tension between us. I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She was trying to stay hopeful, but doubt was creeping in. I felt the same way, yet I knew I had to keep my composure, especially for her sake and for Luna's. Finally, Maxine broke the silence, her voice shaky. "Jonas, what if we're just prolonging this for nothing? What if it's too late?" Her arms were crossed tightly, her eyes fixed on the kitten lying still on the exam table. I wanted to comfort her, but words escaped me. What if she was right? What if we were fighting for a life that was already beyond our reach? I took a deep breath and tried to push those thoughts aside. "We have to try. She deserves a chance," I replied, hoping my words would offer some strength. Sophie looked up from her work, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "It's a hard decision, Jonas. If she pulls through, it'll be nothing short of a miracle. But we can't just give up without doing everything possible." I nodded in agreement, but the uncertainty hung in the air. Maxine's face reflected a mix of concern and frustration. She loved animals deeply, but this was different. This wasn't just a stray we could easily let go. This was a fragile life that needed our help. "We'll figure it out," I whispered to her, though I wasn't entirely sure I believed it myself. As the minutes dragged on, feeling like hours, Sophie worked diligently in the quiet clinic, filled with the gentle hum of equipment and the occasional tap of keys. I heard her softly mumbling as she checked Luna's vital signs, the machines quietly beeping in the background. Maxine and I settled near the window, with the morning sun casting long shadows over the room. Unfortunately, even the warm light couldn't lift the heaviness of our worries. I kept glancing at Sophie, hoping for any indication that Luna was getting better, but nothing seemed to change. Then a sharp knock on the door startled me. Pierre, our neighbor, stepped in. His tough exterior was softened by clear concern in his eyes. "I heard you were here with the kitten," he said, his voice rough yet surprisingly soft. "I thought I'd drop by. I've been in a similar situation before. Not sure if it'll help, but maybe I can share a bit of advice." Maxine and I exchanged looks. Pierre wasn't the type to step outside his farm, so seeing him here felt unusual, but I welcomed the diversion. "I'm glad you came," I responded, even though I wasn't sure what insights he could provide. As he talked about his experiences with animals, it dawned on me that his visit was more about offering support than just advice. The pressure of the decision still hung over me, but with Pierre's presence, it felt a little lighter, at least for a while. The hours dragged on. Luna lay still on the table, her small chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. The room felt stifling, despite the gentle hum of the air conditioner. I watched her closely, my mind racing with mixed emotions. Every time I reached out to touch her, I felt her frailty, as if she might break if I pressed too hard. Maxine hadn't spoken much for a while. She was gazing out the window, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, as though she were trying to keep her own thoughts from spilling out. Finally, she broke the silence, her voice soft but weighted with feeling. "Jonas, what if we're doing this for ourselves, for our need to fix something? Maybe we're just holding on because we can't face the reality that she might not survive." Her words struck me hard, and I turned to her, my stomach twisting. Was she right? Was I clinging to this little life due to my own desire to save something, anything, to feel like I was making a difference? I looked at Luna, her delicate body so still and fragile. A knot formed in my chest. Would it be selfish to let her go now, to free her from the struggle? Or was it more selfish to keep her alive, knowing the challenges she faced? The uncertainty gnawed at me, making me feel like I was at the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to jump or step back. As the afternoon dragged, an uneasy feeling settled in. The once bright clinic felt heavy, filled with the quiet ticking of clocks and the soft sounds of Sophie as she continued her work. Every time I checked on Luna, I felt a mix of apprehension and hope. Each visit left me holding my breath, wishing for a hint of improvement. but each time it seemed like her tiny body was fading away. Then, just when it seemed like all hope was lost, something unexpected happened. Sophie stepped away for a moment, leaving Maxine and me alone with Luna. That's when I saw it, a small, faint movement in Luna's paws. At first, I questioned whether it was just in my head, but then it happened again. A subtle twitch, yet unmistakable. I leaned in closer, my heart racing. "Maxine, look!" I whispered, careful not to disturb the moment. She moved. Maxine quickly came to my side, her eyes wide with cautious optimism. "Is that a good sign?" To be honest, I wasn't sure. I didn't know if this slight movement meant anything significant or if it was simply a reaction to the medication Sophie had given her. However, the way Luna twitched her paw gave me a glimmer of hope. It felt like she was trying to hold on. But what did this mean for us? What if we decided to keep fighting for her, only to witness her suffering even more? I ran my hand through my hair, feeling the weight of the decision grow heavier with each passing moment. The next few days felt like a blur. Luna's condition was delicate, swinging between moments of hope and despair. Each morning, Sophie would come by to check on her, adjusting the care plan as needed, while Maxine and I did our best to keep her warm, fed, and comfortable. There was a palpable tension in the house, between Maxine and me, and even between us and Sophie. We were all so focused on Luna's fight for life that we overlooked our own needs. Our emotions were raw, and the uncertainty weighed heavily on us. It wasn't only Luna who was fragile. Maxine and I were feeling the strain too. I noticed her quiet moments of reflection becoming more frequent. There were times when she seemed to pull away emotionally, as if bracing herself for the worst. I could see that she was scared, not just for Luna, but for us as well. How would we handle the loss of this tiny creature who had unexpectedly woven herself into our lives? I struggled too. There were moments when it felt like I was investing my heart into something with no future, no hope of survival. Yet, just when I thought I couldn't bear it anymore, I would catch a glimpse of Luna's tiny eyes looking up at me, her fragile body still fighting, and I knew I couldn't walk away. Milo, our other cat, appeared to pick up on the changes in our home. Since Luna arrived, his usually independent demeanor had softened. He would sit quietly in the corner, watching her as if he felt a protective instinct. I couldn't help but wonder if he, too, was trying to understand the situation we were all facing. Caring for Luna had evolved into something deeper than just tending to a sick kitten. It was now about the connections we were forming, the difficult choices ahead of us, and the uncertainty of what the future would hold. As Luna's condition continued to fluctuate, the tension around the house increased immensely. We found ourselves at a crossroads, grappling with whether to keep fighting for her life or to consider letting her go. Sophie had been incredibly patient, providing advice and check-ins, but I could sense her growing frustration. She wanted to see Luna get better, yet the reality was hard to ignore. The little kitten was barely surviving, weakened by the illness. One evening, while sitting beside Luna's bed, the weight of our decision overwhelmed me. I felt drained, both in body and spirit. Maxine, too, had become quieter, withdrawing into herself more and more. The strain of the situation had taken its toll on both of us, leaving us unsure about how to proceed. That's when Sophie shared something significant. "Jonas, I need to be straightforward with you," she said, her tone both firm and compassionate. "We have two choices. We can continue trying to help Luna recover, but there are no guarantees. She might not make it. Alternatively, we could think about letting her go. It's a tough decision, but it could be the kindest option." Maxine, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped forward. "I believe we should think about what's best for her," she spoke softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I love her, but I don't want to see her in pain any longer." I looked between them, caught in a struggle between my wish to save Luna and the growing realization that perhaps it was time to let go. The following days became a blur of silent discussions, unvoiced fears, and an overwhelming sense of guilt. Maxine and I found ourselves at odds more than before. She believed that the right choice was to allow Luna to rest, to ease her suffering, but I couldn't bring myself to agree just yet. Not while there still seemed to be a flicker of life in her, no matter how dim it was. The conversations we were having grew more intense and filled with urgency, each line weighed down by unspoken fears. Maxine had always been someone who approached life practically. Yet beneath that tough exterior, there was a gentleness she usually kept hidden. I could see it was taking a toll on her. She didn't want to see Luna in pain any longer, and honestly, I couldn't fault her for that. Still, I held on to a flicker of hope, an irrational belief that Luna might pull through this time. One evening, Sophie came by to check on Luna, and the air was heavy with unspoken tension. "You both need to come to a decision," she said softly, glancing between Maxine and me. "It's not fair to keep her in limbo." Maxine looked at me, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I just can't bear to see her suffer any longer, Jonas. It's too much." Her words struck me hard, resonating in the quiet that followed. My heart ached. The weight of our choice loomed over me, and I realized I was lost. I didn't know if I was advocating for Luna's life or simply for my own comfort. The night before we would make our decision, sleep eluded me. I found myself beside Luna's bed, watching her struggle for every breath. Each tiny movement seemed to take all her strength. Her once soft fur was now rough and tangled, and I could see her body quivering, even with the warmth of the blanket. It was clear she was trying desperately to hold on, yet the toll this fight was taking on her was painfully visible. Maxine was asleep in the next room, her breath slow and even. I wished I could embrace the calm, but instead, the decision weighed on me like a heavy stone. I realized we couldn't let Luna remain trapped in this pain indefinitely. Deep down, I knew I had to confront the harsh truths of her situation. The choice ahead felt like a dark cloud hanging above me, pulling me in conflicting directions. Was it unkind to keep pushing for her survival without a guarantee of success? Or was it more merciful to let her go, to end her troubled journey before it had fully begun? I sat there for what seemed like hours, my thoughts racing in circles. Just then, a faint mew broke the stillness. It wasn't much, a small, weak sound, but it stopped me cold. Luna was still fighting, still hanging on to life in the most delicate way. Tears filled my eyes as I faced a decision that felt impossibly heavy. I realized that the choice we were about to make would change everything from that moment forward. The next morning, we could no longer delay. In the kitchen, I held my phone, one hand trembling as I stared at the number for Sophie. Maxine stood beside me, her expression pale and her eyes red from a lack of sleep. We hadn't talked much since the previous night, but the weight of our decision loomed large, creating a growing tension between us. "Sophie is waiting for us," I finally said, my voice barely rising above a whisper. "We have to go. It's time to make a choice." Maxine hesitated, then nodded slowly, her gaze drifting to the corner where Luna lay in her bed. The little kitten was still breathing, her breath softer and more shallow than before. I wanted to cling to that small sign of life, to believe that she might recover, but the reality was hard to ignore. Maxine broke the silence, her voice shaky. "Jonas, what if we're holding on to her for the wrong reasons? What if it's just selfishness? What if she's suffering because we can't let go?" Her words hit me hard. I understood the truth they carried, and I felt the weight of our impending decision. I didn't want to make this call, but dragging Luna through uncertainty and pain wasn't fair to her. Looking at Maxine, it became clear that we were both grappling with the same realization. We needed to let her go. With gentle care, I cradled Luna in my hands one last time. "Goodbye, little one," I whispered, my voice quivering. "I hope you find peace." The days that followed were quiet, filled with a heaviness that lingered. Maxine and I spent hours at the clinic with Sophie, holding Luna as she drifted away. It was a heart-wrenching moment, and even now I felt a deep ache in my chest. Letting go was the right choice, yet it didn't make the process any easier. I thought about the tiny kitten I had held, fighting with all her strength, and I wondered if she understood that we had done our best for her. In the end, Luna's time with us was short, but her impact was anything but. It wasn't solely about saving her, it was about the lessons she imparted. Lessons about love, the importance of letting go, and the strength required to make tough choices, even when those choices hurt deeply. Maxine and I found comfort in the memories of the brief time we spent with her. Those small moments of connection brought us closer, despite our differences. The outcome might not have been perfect, but it felt real. I've come to understand that often it's the uncertainty of rescue and of life itself that gives it meaning. I've realized that not every rescue leads to a fairy tale ending, but each journey leaves its imprint. Reflecting on Luna's short life fills me with gratitude for the chance to try, to love, and ultimately to say goodbye. Have you ever been touched by a similar experience? If Luna's story resonated with you, I'd be glad to hear from you. Consider subscribing to the channel so we can explore these emotional journeys together. Your thoughts and experiences in animal rescue matter, so feel free to share them in the comments. I'll return with more stories about the hurdles and victories of helping animals in need. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for even more insights.